Hi, and welcome back for another anatomy lesson. Today we are talking about the trapezius. The trapezius is a quite large muscle on the back that you can also see from the front on top of the shoulders here. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Okay, so here is an image of the musculature of the back, and what I want you to notice first before we even start talking about the trapezius is that in this image, the arms are actually lifted up. So the arms are not down, they're lifted up, and what that's doing is it's moving this scapula. So normally in a resting position with the arms down, this spine of the scapula right here might actually be a little bit more level and a little bit more in that kind of position. And then the rest of the scapula might instead be down like this. So this is more of kind of a resting position of the scapula there. But that is not happening right now. That scapula is pulled upwards and out to the side, and the arm is going out. And what that means for us is that it is changing the shape of this trapezius that we're studying today just a little bit. So we're going to see what it looks like in a resting position, but that's just something I want you to know right away. So the trapezius goes from the base of the skull here all the way down to the vertebrae, which is connecting to that lowest rib. So it's the lowest thoracic vertebrae down there. You can see the boundary of it goes along the back of the neck. It creates this top of the shoulder, and we do see it a little bit on the front. It connects to the spine of the scapula. We'll get into that more soon. And then it goes down toward that lowest vertebrae. So it makes kind of this trapezoid shape like this. But I also think about it, in order to remember the name of it, I think about somebody on a flying trapeze and how the shape of this muscle kind of looks like somebody with their arms out. And especially when you see the shape, when the scapula are down, it even has a little bit more of that shape. So that's just something that I use to help remember the name of the trapezius and which one it is. And then, of course, you can see there is all along this area that I'm kind of shading in. This is all some tendon, which is helping to attach the muscles onto the spine. And then there's this big tendon up here attaching to the spine of the scapula. So this is really quite a large muscle, and it does a lot of different things. If we look at the directions of the muscle fibers, up here at the top by the neck, those muscle fibers are angled a little bit down this way, right? So it does help a little bit with moving the head and the neck and turning things there. And then it starts to just become a little bit more sideways, these muscle fibers do. So that is going to be pulling the scapula up. This section up here of the trapezius that is at the top, that is going to help us to shrug and to kind of pull our shoulders up. It'll also help us pull our shoulders up and back. So it's going to pull that scapula toward the spine, and it's going to pull it a little bit up as well. Then we get even more horizontal, and as we go even lower, these fibers start to angle upwards. So using these middle parts of the trapezius, instead of pulling the shoulder up and back, it pulls just plain back and towards the spine. And then the lower part can also help pull the shoulder back and down. So that is what is happening there. But I do think it's important to see from a drawing standpoint that these muscle fibers all pull the shoulder back in some way, shape, or form, back and up, back and just plain back, or back and down. So that muscle is really going to change shape a lot depending on where the arm is and where the scapula is. So right here, it's in a stretched out position, but let's go ahead and take a look at this muscle in more of a relaxed position. So here's where it's attaching at the base of the skull. It's coming over here. It's going around the spine of the scapula and down, and again back over here. So now, instead of this really quite diamond shape like that we had in the last one, now we've got this diamond shape with a notch in it. And that's where I think of this, you know, kind of looking like a person with their arms out, like they're on the flying trapeze, right? We're gonna go ahead and take another look. This one is very nice and clear. And now we have a little bit of a side view. And although this arm here is up and this one is down, it's like that arm is up, but it feels like the shoulder blade is still being pulled this way. So it's kind of the difference, if you can see me a little bit here, between the shoulder being close and further away compared to the first one that we looked at and this one now. All right, so here is that spine of the scapula again. The scapula is angled here. It's not going straight up and down. It's going to be somewhere underneath there. And then here is our trapezius and attaching to the base of the skull. So now we have a little bit of an overview of that. I do want to show you just a little bit more so we can actually see here. I'm going to highlight this whole area is the deltoid. And then here, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see. Here is where that trapezius connects, right in through there. So notice it takes a little bit of a curve there. Sometimes people think that the trapezius actually connects down on this edge, and it does not. But the fibers and the attachment kind of wrap around just a little bit underneath. And then you can see in this part, it says smooth surface over which the trapezius glides. So that means it's not actually attached to this surface, but it does overlap that surface. So it moves underneath. I find that always really, really helpful in understanding where things are. So now let's talk about how we're going to see this actually in a figure. So we can instantly see the top of the trapezius here and here. So that's really, I think, the first part that you start to see on the trapezius is just that angle above the shoulder. So we can follow that around because if we look at his skull is going to be somewhere in there. So this muscle, this trapezius, is going to be attaching here because his head is turned, right? Now we can also look and we can see this indentation, this little backwards L. That is always a huge indicator of where that trapezius is attaching to the spine of the scapula. And here there's this bulge above that indentation because that muscle is being contracted and it's being used to pull that shoulder and that arm back and up a little bit. So that's what's happening there. In more relaxed positions, that may not be so round. It may be more flat. Okay, so our trapezius continues here, goes around here, and then let's find where the bottom of it is. Sometimes you can see a little indication. So to me, it looks like it's going to be about there. We're not seeing an indication that's super clear there, but I'm kind of following. If you can just see, there's a little slight indentation in here, and that is what's giving me the clue that that trapezius is ending around there. All right, so here we've got the trapezius there. This is that little L shape that I'm looking for because this one is also contracted, and then I'm following it down here. So I'm looking for those little indentations underneath, and you can also think about where the rib cage is, that those ribs kind of come down, and it makes sense that that rib cage is around about in there. Let's do just one final one. Okay, so let's go finding this trapezius. Follow up here to the scapula. Now that's really stretched out. Here's the spine. We'll kind of imagine it going to the base of the head here, and then around the top of the shoulder, and like this. So we just have like a little bit less of that L shape. So we'll follow here, and there's the edge of the spine here. And again, it's a little hard to see under the hair, but I believe the trapezius is going up this way. And that one is a little more even. Still a little bit wide. It's kind of like both shoulders are a little bit forward and the back is being pushed back behind the shoulders. But there you go. There's the trapezius. Let's go ahead now and sketch the trapezius onto our skeleton figure. Okay, we're going to start with this back view right here. And I have the anatomy picture off to the left just to help us in order to do this. So remember that trapezius is connecting right at the bottom of the skull. So we're going to go from here. And then we're going to be connecting to this top of that spine of the scapula. And it'll kind of wrap around a little bit, but it's not going to go over this entire section right there. So it's going to kind of come back this way where it attaches. And then we go down to the last vertebrae for the bottom ribs. So it's going to be attaching here in this V shape. So I'm going to go from this attachment here, just make a line straight down to that V. All right, I'm going to do this on the other side too. So here's where that trapezius is going to connect. And I'll go straight down. Here's that 7th cervical spine right here. So there's a little bit more tendon around that. There's a tendon just going all along the middle, and that tendon is a little bit wider at that part. Okay, so here's where we go down the side of the spine of the scapula and then follow the trapezius up where it's kind of a little bit round, and then it goes up this way. So it's got like a little bit of that star shape here. Do it on the other side as well. Down that way and around. All right, with a little bit of tendon there in the middle. Okay, so now you can see what I'm talking about with the fanning of those muscle fibers there, the directions that they go in. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that in a bit, trying to follow those directions. All right, so there's the shape of that trapezius there.
This video features highlights from a full drawing lesson, which can be found on patreon.com/School of Realist Art. There you will find extended lessons, multiple examples, reference photos, and other tutorials. Check out patreon.com/School of Realist Art.